Hi, I'm IKEA, and we're back here again, where I don't want to be. As for today's video, I'm going to be talking about fog of war again, and not in a for no particular reason kind of way, because he's put out stuff and it's bad. He has done things to Burst DPS that are in gross violation of the Geneva Convention. Under the beliefs that he has that it should conform to what he wants to do with it instead of what it actually does. And we're going to go discuss all that, and we're going to discuss some basic arithmetic that, at least in my country, you get taught at around like 13, 14, but apparently a grown man doesn't know. And I'm going to be yelling at him a lot here. I'm going to act angry. I am angry, but I'm mostly angry at having to waste my time. But I'm going to get that frustration out at him. So I am going to be yelling a lot. If that is not your thing, maybe at least just watch the conclusion, or maybe completely skip this one if you're. I'll try to not yell in the conclusion part. As one of the things as well in this video is I actually agree with the main sentiment of that video that he has put out. Shock horror, I know, right? But the ways in which he has done so are just bad. It's bad, guys. And he wants to go into it with having ruffled so many feathers and stuff, and the community's in uproar. Yes, because we're like laughing and face palming at you in equal measure. So many of your viewership is people that then go into Discords and just make fun of your reality. And I didn't, even before somebody even asked my opinion of your video, there was already talk of, hey, an idiot has is saying measured is good. And like the measured is good memes went the rounds again. In doing so, actually, you have as well shown that why we do use Burst DPS calculations, because in trying to do a simulation, you have irrevocably failed at showing why measured is good or bad, and we'll go into that as well. But yeah, let's first start off with the video. And this is the video we'll be discussing today, the free to choose video of Fog of War, which is his latest release. And it has a lot of bad things in it. And we're going to go through it. I'm going to go through it in linear length of his video, which is maybe not the best way, but is going to make it easier for me. And I've wasted enough time on Fog of War, and I want to do my own stuff. So I'm going to take the easy way and just go in linear with this and talk about all of my issues with all of the things that he's doing. Because, yeah, most of it is like just bad stuff. I've paused it here to talk about the first thing. So he loves pulling up these numbers for his enemies, his average enemies, basically. At no point does he say it's about solo, because that matters. Not everybody plays solo. When you have these numbers out here somewhere with these yellow bars, and you're not putting any numbers on them, and we have to back calculate from time to kill to what this original enemy was. That's annoying. First of all, put numbers here. Wherever you can put numbers, just put them there. Don't just put bars. Like this is basic level science stuff, and you love to proclaim that you're a man of science and stuff. Put numbers on stuff. But I want to kind of discuss time to kill for a second as well. Because yeah, first off, he's talking about solo enemies, and that changes these numbers by a lot. Because yeah, if we go in here, he starts talking about it being just 0.7 seconds by dropping one blue core, which is a fine choice to do. And I'll actually, towards the conclusion, that part I agree with. A lot of people are way too intensely into outputting a maximum damage over and everything else. And that's not for everyone. It doesn't work for everyone, and it isn't for everyone's playstyles. So that's a fine discussion to have. You don't need time to kill or anything to have this discussion. You could have the same discussion in Burst. You could even have the same discussion without even calculations, by just going, if I take 2 blue cores and I still can complete missions fast enough, is that not a good choice? Sure. I would take a memento first, but sure. Let's say it's okay to give up damage is basically the discussion there. None of this other stuff is required to have that discussion. Not burst DPS, not sustain DPS, not damage per mag, not time to kill, and not bullets to kill. But let me actually first move on by saying why we don't use time to kill in Division. Because yeah, time to kill, and by extension bullets to kill is basically just a different way of doing time to kill. You're just not using time, you're using bullets, but then you have to you're leaving out basically the interval of the weapon, the RPM of the weapon, the RPS of this weapon. And both are interesting metrics to have, definitely. And yeah, we should have more of this. It isn't a replacement for actual burst DPS. So not the burst DPS that he's talking about, as we'll go into in a second, but actual burst DPS. And the reason for that is kind of actually given by us by Fog of War in those bars on the left. As time to kill always basically comes with a question, and if that question is answered easily, games use it, because there are many games where we use time to kill, and then there's many games where we're more towards DPS, so burst and sustain DPSs. The reason for that is very simple. There's one simple question that to use the time to kill, you have to answer. And this is going to basically sound as if it's a gotcha when we ask it in Division. But then I'll go in why that isn't actually a gotcha question. Because yeah, the time to kill always comes with this. Time to kill what? What is the thing that you're choosing as the time, as the thing that is taking that time to kill? Now in this case, if you think about it for in Division, how many things are there that could fit that bill? Because here, Fog of War has taken 3 things. And as we said it before, they're solo things. What if we are playing mostly 2-man? What if we're playing mostly 3-man? What if we're mostly playing 4-man? Now, of course, you could tailor the calculation to match that. You could have the 4-man calculations of these numbers be there. But there is no universality there to be had. That's the thing what Burst DPS does, and what Fog of War does not understand, is in that is also that he's going that, oh, but Burst DPS doesn't incorporate accuracy. Burst DPS doesn't incorporate amounts of how much DTOC is active. It doesn't account for how much DTA is active. And he sees that as a bad thing, where the rest of us see that as the purpose of Burst DPS. Burst DPS is the final point that you can reach without adding in bias. And I don't mean bias in like the newspaper sense or in the colloquial sense. I mean bias in the scientific sense. Where what bias means is a thing that you pick to be arbitrary. So, for instance here, there's an arbitrary choice, a biased choice, but in this case, in both ways, in colloquial, and towards solo elite enemy, solo veteran purple enemy, and a solo red enemy. Averaged out as well, by the way. Because what happens if this elite is a rusher? What happens if this elite is a outcast LMG? You have to bias it in some way. And that is oftentimes fine to do, because let's take that same question, time to kill what? And let's apply it, for instance, to games that use time to kill. Battlefield, Modern Warfare, CSGO. Well, CS since the start, since 1.0, 1.6, Source, and then CSGO. All of them use basically time to kill as their metrics for their weapons. Because in there, time to kill what isn't like isn't followed up by somebody going, oh wait, yeah, there's raid enemies, there's legendary enemies, there's 4-man scaling, there's solo scaling, there's chungas, there's rushers, that's a lot, right? In CSGO, time to kill what? Base enemy, enemy with armor, with chest armor, enemy with chest and helmet. 3 numbers. Time to kill makes sense, suddenly. For a game like Division, time to kill is an interesting metric to have. But it also has one other flaw, which we'll get into, especially if you're trying to use it the way that Fog of War is doing. And that's mostly down also to his trying to talk about a first bullet principle. And we're going to go into a segment that he was talking about me, and I'm just going to fast forward there. I'll see you in a millisecond. And actually, before we go into the segment that was about me, actually, I'd forgotten about this. And this actually provides us with the exact reasons why time to kill and burst DPS have different purposes, and trying to do burst DPS, trying to do time to kill with burst DPS fails, and trying to do a continuous rate kind of thing with time to kill also fails. Because here we have actually a simulation, basically as what happens in the game or in any game. Your first shot, if your calculation starts on the moment that you pull the trigger, basically, as is happening here, then yeah, the 0 point is where your first damage goes out, in actuality, as a simulation. And then on 1 second, your second shot goes out. Also, notice here as well that for the first second, it's going from 0 to 0.9. That is the first second. This shot is a second. Then we go the second shot, another second, and then on exactly 2 seconds, we put the shot out and we get our time to kill number. And that is the right way to do time to kill. You shouldn't actually use burst DPS to do time to kill. You should actually, time to kill should come from a simulation, basically. This has one issue though, because this is fine if the universe ends here. If the universe ends after that second shot, that's fine. And that's usually as well, like in CSGO, you'll kill one enemy and that'll be it. Like, and then you can reload and then do that again. So time to kill there is a thing to have happen. But you might have also noticed in a lot of those games, if you've been around for a while, played Call of Duty's, Battlefields, usually the numbers that they provide is time to kill and time to kill +1 interval. And you need that +1 interval if you want to stack these. Because if you're going to take the time to kill as it is here on 2.0 seconds, and you're going to stack it, what's going to happen is that you're firing another shot on 2.1 seconds. And that is a common thing. We know you can't stack time to kill. Like this isn't new. All of these things are not new. FOW tries to act as if like these are problems that have existed. Like nobody's found these things. No, these have been brought up a dozen times and they've been looked at a dozen times. And some people have gone like, maybe have been convinced by them. And that's also my annoyance with this, is that nobody in the comments is like calling him out on this. Maybe he's hiding them. I'm not going to make that accusation fully, but really nobody remembers time to kill calculations and time to kill +1 intervals and stuff like this. Like, I'm no genius. I don't even have, like, I have the lowest high school diploma that I can get in my country. That is my level of education. I brute forced my way into understanding these things. These things aren't hard to understand. And this person is trying to correct others. I would like to remind you. Like, if you put this out and you go like, have I found maybe something interesting? Then, yeah. Most people that do actually have been around for a while will go like, yeah, no, time to kill is fine like that. Time to kill is a simulation. Burst is not a simulation. Burst DPS is a simplification. But the reason that it goes to showing basically 3 seconds as a time to kill, if you use burst DPS to calculate that, is to incorporate this last interval. Because burst DPS cannot be used for a time to kill. It's just continuous. It doesn't care that the enemy has died. It's still going. Now let's move on to the segment where he was discussing me, and he actually showed me something that I did actually hadn't realized about the range. So yeah, kudos to him for that one. Yeah, let's go look at it. And here is that segment from recently my range video for no particular reason, which the back half of it was about him. And he did, of course, not address that back. Because, of course, he didn't. He went after the lowest hanging fruit, not even talking about the second and third tests that follow up this one, where the thing that he's going to proclaim in a second will not hold true. But he did show me something, and going through it on these numbers, and he ended up with this chart. And this actually did catch my interest, because yes, this actually kind of does look like the calculation in the game, especially if you start from 1 second. But also keep in mind that in a second ago, the second ended on 0.9 for very particular reasons, where we go in a second with it. And this is actually interesting because, yes, this, as I went through and did way too much work, actually, but I wanted to see if it was actually correct. These are all of the numbers from the range as they happen. And if you go back to his video, so these are the first 10, and then second 10, third 10, fourth 10, fifth 10, and with the tactical reload, so there's a number even over there at the far right of it. We go back to his numbers, and if we skip everything under 1, because you could shift this calculation by +1 and then shift it back if you wanted to actually not divide by 0 or anything, which is a simple calculation thing. Like, this is simple arithmetics, but yes, he hasn't done this here. So the numbers below below 1 are completely wrong, of course, but that's fine. Like, the rest of it actually shows me what he thinks burst DPS is, because he's put DPS above it beautifully as well. And you may notice that here it's not constant. It's not a singular number. And this actually answered one of my things that I was like, what is he talking about with DPS not being a constant rate? Like, yeah, if you calculate burst DPS out this way, it isn't a constant rate. Yes, you have broken burst DPS and are proud of it. And yeah, going back to this range thing first, because I'm going to give him some props first before, as always, as I said in the last video as well, I'm going to give him a cookie first, and then I'm going to slap him in the face. So yeah, I took all of these numbers. I went over here, and actually not on that sheet yet, but this sheet. On this very left one, and I'll link this one below, it's going to be very tiny, likely on screen. I can make it a lot a bit bigger, just to have it a little bit more legible, maybe, as I'll do that. One less, so we have that big black part on the right, because yeah, that's a spoiler for in a second. And on the left here, this is from the range. The numbers as they were with this picture, with their time, with some repeating. I am unsure if I got it all the way right, but it's all pretty close enough to the way he's doing burst DPS. Well, he's let's call this FOW DPS, right? let's not sully the names of DP. Well, it's not even DPS because it's not. It's FOW damage, FOW simulation. He gets to call it. He's invented it. Where he starts on 0, and that's actually what the range apparently is doing as well. As yeah, this is with that gray build, with a gray weapon. So basically making it as easy for the range. And yeah, he's basically he is right. This is what the range is doing, because yeah, if we look at this far right number and then these left numbers, they basically are within error margins of each other. Like, they're pretty close, and especially towards the end, they line up well enough, where maybe like frame rate or something, a single frame being like a millisecond behind or millisecond ahead will alter this, maybe, for instance. And then, yeah, this is his something, his burst DPS plus 1 bullet, basically, is what is happening here. Is this burst DPS? No. Simple. That one's simple, because burst DPS is a simple calculation. It is literally, as I'll do it here, it's the damage per shot. Here, of course, it was with a build with no crit chance, no crit damage. It was a beautiful gray build, as I have it there. If we go back, So it's this 147 times the RPS, the rounds per second, which on that ICAM was 10, as it is 600 RPM divided by 60 is 10. This is burst TPS, 1470. Notice as well how 1470 here is on 0.9. All right. That was also when he did that first bullet thing. He started from 0 and he went to 0.9. That was his first round. Yet later on in this video, he goes into it as with the first second, having this first shot interval thing that he has, I've seen it before somewhere. I'm unsure exactly where I've seen it, so I don't want to call that person out, but they'll likely step forward anyway at some point. By adding a number on 0, on burst, trying to basically do a simulation with burst TPS, they have irrevocably broken burst TPS. They have taken burst TPS and destroyed it. Because notice here, this is 14.7. This is happening on 0.9 here. This 0 is breaking everything for burst TPS. Not for a simulation, of course. For a simulation, this is what you want. For time to kill, that 0 needs to be there. Your shot needs to go out on 0. For burst TPS is like, it's this little simple calculation. It's 2 numbers. It's in the case for a real build, this would be an average shot. So taking crit chance, crit damage, taking the crit damage shot, doing that times the crit chance, taking the crit and the non-crit shot, doing it times the non-crit chance, the 100 divided minus the crit chance. You get an average number out of that. That becomes that 147 side of this. And then the RPS is from taking the RPM of the weapon times that. That's all that burst is. It's a super simple calculation. And because of that, of course, it isn't a simulation. Notice what you need to do to get a simulation out. I don't want to do this every time. I'm lazy. I'm a lazy fuck. I don't want to do this every time for getting a number out. And this is not a DPS. A damage per second means that over this first second, it needs to be the same on the second second, and it needs to be the same on this third second, and it needs to be the same on the fourth second. It needs to be a constant rate. And when you go that burst DPS isn't a constant rate, now I see what the fuck you're talking about. Because here, let me fix it for you. Let's see what's behind curtain number 1. We're going to take this, make it white. Look, I've started the calculation on 0.1, the first interval. Ah, but this isn't the simulation. No shit, it isn't the simulation. Look what happens to burst DPS there. It is the actual DPS. This is the calculation that the rest of the community is doing. You can go, okay, that's not enough for me. I need a simulation. Fine. Don't take burst DPS. Don't drive your car. Don't take your car and drive it into a river and go, this car sucks. It doesn't float. What kind of boat is this? With a straight face, basically. And go like, oh, I'm ruffling people's feathers. Stop wasting my time. Most of all. Why am I here? Only to suffer? Like, you've irrevocably done something dumb to burst DPS, and then you go like, oh, but it's not doing the thing that I wanted to do. No, yes, no. Your car didn't float. Yeah, no. Sucks, man. Yeah. The rest of us will be over here with burst DPS. And we're going to go into why we actually burst DPS isn't an issue, that it doesn't start on 0.1, because burst DPS, this is actually a thing that like I got taught like 2004, right? I think in EVE, where we were doing burst calculation, and I had kind of like the same thing of like, wait, why doesn't the calculation start on 0? Because our first shot goes on 0. And the answer to that is very simple. And you could have asked anybody with burst DPS and knowledge that is on the burst DPS side of the fence, basically, and go like, but wait, isn't this an issue? And the answer is basically no, because burst TPS is a simplification. It doesn't lead, it follows. It doesn't predict the first shot. It doesn't start above 0, because if it did, it breaks it, as you have shown. And this is actually the cool thing, if we're going to go cool thing about this in some way, is that, yeah, if you actually look at the range, and then these numbers are split out, yeah, this is what the devs have been doing as well in Division. There are other DPS like ranges in firing kind of ranges in other games that do this the right way. They do not go from the 0 as their first interval. They go from the first interval and then calculate out the burst DPS, and they spit out a singular number. And I'm actually surprised that I didn't think of this, but that's also because this hasn't come up for me in like 7 years for the last time when somebody was talking about this in, back then it was in WoW. And yes, burst DPS is not a simulation. Stop trying to make it be a simulation, because you're breaking it. You're breaking it. Here it's fixed. Literally, the only thing that happened is that this part got selected and got dragged up 1. I can't drag here, but what I can do is Control copy, Control V. There, fixed it. Shift it up 1, and it's fixed. Now, of course, the response is going to be, oh, but it's not a simulation. No, it's not. But let's go into why that is. And actually, before we move on, I actually want to briefly touch on this, because otherwise, because yeah, we don't have the full answer to the range yet. We do have the answer to part of it breaking now, actually, which, yeah, thank you, FOW. Not that I really cared about the range, because it's still broken. Like, it doesn't matter how it's broken, it's still broken. Because also when we move into different tests, so here I went into the second test. This is from the firing range for no particular reason. You can just go watch it for yourself as well and double check my findings here. Here on the left, we have the FOW method. On the right, we have just burst DPS, the normal ass method. In that test, first of all, at the last shot here, yes, actually those do line up with here, but also I got several other numbers. Are you going to have a calculation that spits out all of these numbers? Because the range is still breaking in some other ways. We haven't figured it out all yet. So with a gray build, yes, if everybody was playing gray builds, at least we know how the range is breaking, and we can fix for that, but also we could have just done a burst calculation, or even a time to kill calculation, a correct time to kill calculation. Both of which are fine. Because then we move over to Umbra, and I've actually calculated out the DPS of it. It is 7,652,000, some other numbers. The range spits out this 11 million. Even his calculation way is landing at around this 7.8, where he's added in an extra round for no particular reason. And the normal burst DPS way leads to just normal burst DPS numbers, and not 11 million. So we still haven't figured out the range. Stop trying to act as if you actually completed the complete things. You were getting us a little bit of the way there. So yeah, thank you for furthering the knowledge of the community, as you told me that, yeah, if I wanted to do that, I should talk to you. Yeah, but you still haven't fixed everything. And also, good job on not talking about the back half of that video. That was about you. For very obvious reasons, was about you. You didn't touch that one, did you? You don't respond to actual criticism, do you? Now, actually, let's move on to the issue that that time to kill will have when you try to stack it, where burst DPS doesn't. And that's why we use burst DPS, because we're stacking enemies on top of each other. It's enemies all the way down, man. Let's see. Yes, let's move on to why, yeah, you cannot use burst DPS as a time to kill kind of, in a time to kill kind of way. as he's showing here, he has an enemy with like 3 HP. Every of these blue parts are shots going out, each of 1 HP, making it for easy way of course, calculating. And again, here, of course, for time to kill, it is happening on 0. It's going to 1. The first shot is going out on 0. The second shot is going out on 1. And the third shot, that is the kill shot, is going out on 2, as we had it there before. And of course, burst is basically 1 interval behind, if you were to use it for this kind of thing. But if we then move on to here, what indeed does happen when you take this area of time to kill of 2 seconds and you try to stack it? That's why all those sites have that time to kill +1 interval for other games and stuff. And you should have that here as well. If you want to put out time to kill numbers, you have to put out time to kill +1 interval numbers as well, side by side. Because otherwise, you're only caring about 1 kill, which is fine for a lot of games. But do we in Division actually do 1 kill and then just the universe ends and the new universe starts and then we go on? Because if you try to stack this one, this 0 is going to stack over this 2, and 2 shots are going to go out on this 2 seconds. You've basically turned every weapon, if you don't add in that interval and you do time to kill wrong, basically, you're stacking up 2 shots on that same 2 seconds. You're basically, turned every weapon into a Ravenous, and the Ravenous into a quad barrel Ravenous. Like, you did a cool thing, but it's also like you want to talk about reality. So burst DPS doesn't know what it's killing. It doesn't care. It's not a 2 kill. It's a second thing. This second is the same. This second is the same. And for a very good reason, because here, if we have these 3 seconds, with like these 3 seconds, and we try to like stack them on top of each other, making a line, it works. Because the next shot has to wait for that interval to go out. That's why we all, like, if you had asked actually anybody that like has some knowledge about burst DPS, is one of the sentences about burst DPS is burst DPS doesn't lead, it follows. And it's for a very specific reason, because otherwise it can't be a constant rate in the same way that you have broken it there. Because what you are doing, if you don't add in that interval, is this. Now, of course, you can add in that interval. That interval is already here. And what you should be doing actually is going like this. And if you're killing multiple enemies, that interval goes to the end there. And this all stacks back up on it. And it goes like this, basically. It's, for some reason, it's smaller. I don't know why. They changed all their sizes together. But it's basically like this, right? At least, well, not these two, of course. But if you wanted to stack them, you need that interval there. And then suddenly burst DPS has the same. Burst DPS is basically that. Time to kill +1 interval is going to line up with burst DPS. And the reason for it is you keep trying to make it into like a simulation. You're in your live video at the start of it. You go like, but it's only true for this part. Yes, that is not, it's not like designed to be anything else but that. It only lines up for the top, like until you're stop firing, basically, with perfect accuracy, with everything on perfect uptime. Because otherwise you have to choose what you're killing. Because again here, like this thing, you have to pick something. What if this is not something that is dying in like even ways? What if it's 1,000 different enemies? Burst CPS stays the same. It doesn't care about that other part of it. It's a constant. It's the same for this first second, the second second, and the third second. Time to kill shifts for the enemy that you've chosen, because sometimes you'll need one more shot, sometimes you won't need one more shot, and it might, with a different weapon, you might, with AK, you might need, for instance, on this enemy, you might be better off with the time to kill than a FAMAS, and then on a different enemy, you might be better off with a FAMAS than a TKB. But we don't want that. We don't care about that level of granularity. We care about burst CPS being a constant. Because let me show you what you are basically doing by adding in that first shot. As here, we're back to this thing. I've taken the first second from the range numbers, basically, put them here. we get a line, which isn't perfectly straight, but that's just a rounding error basically for one of these numbers up there. And here, burst is now a straight line, right? It's going from 0 to 0. From 0 to 0.9, a 1 second interval. It's doing that 1470 DPS at this point, basically, as it's cumulative damage over that 1 second. So this works, right? No, because this is misaligned. This is what your numbers are showing. Because that one, of course, starts at 0 and goes to 1, or well, 0.9, being a 1 second interval from 0 to 0.9. And then the next second starts. But that one also then starts on 0. You've split this line. And of course, you can go, yeah, but that means that burst TPS isn't the correct simulation. And again, yes, it's not. Burst TPS isn't meant as a simulation. You're the only person that hasn't gotten it through his thick skull that burst TPS is just an oversimplification that is super easy to use. Both burst and sustain and damage per mag. Those three metrics, we use them for a reason. And that's because your fascination with trying to pick a number for the DTH, DTA, DTOC, optimal ranges, accuracy and stuff. The rest of the community doesn't want that because we want to have the burst TPS number. And then we know that, for instance, I have decent accuracy. I'll be fighting enemies, for instance, together with the Eclipse. Most of it will be with DTOC on. That's not going to be the same for you, for instance, who has picked 80% DTOC. Like, that is a crazy number to me. But then, yes, if you're playing solo and you're playing at the optimal ranges that you're doing, everything's going to make it to cover and be in cover. When I'm running with an Eclipse alongside me in a group, first off, I'm in a group, scaling is different, and everything's on fire, because either I'm the Eclipse or I'm with an Eclipse setting everything on fire. Nothing's in cover. We cannot... Burst is the final point before you have to add in anything of what you feel that you need to add in. You feel that you need to have a simulation. And that's fine. Have that discussion then. Go, burst is not good enough for me. First off, stop breaking burst. Do it how the rest of the community is doing it, first of all. Like, the rest of the community has a set way of doing it, and you're going like, I have altered it, I have broken it. Like, if you had altered it and improved it, sure, fine. We could go like, oh man, thank you, FOW. You have enlightened us. You have ruffled our feathers into understanding now. No, you have broken burst. You have done it wrong, and then you've gone like, oh, this way that I'm doing it that is wrong is wrong. Yeah, no shit, fucking fucklock. Yeah. Like, if you break things, yeah, they don't work anymore. Good, thank you. Thank you for showing us that. Thank you for increasing our knowledge about things breaking, not working. The rest of the community has been doing this for forever. And again, this isn't just like, if you want to find a flaw, that is fine. I have been that guy. I have been in your shoes, but I found actual flaws and went after them. I went after people still calling DZ items DZ exclusives. I still go after them. I'm going after people calling foxes per multiplicative. I went after and mostly changed it because if you go back into very old versions of, for instance, the Discord spreadsheet, sustain was set there as DPM. That used to be the term in the community for sustain DPS. And they were doing it in DPM. They were giving a burst in DPS, and they were going DPM and giving a sustain number. But that's super annoying because you're much better off having both in DPS so that you can put them next to each other and have it be one of the lower bounds and one of the upper bounds. So I crusaded for that. I understand that feeling of like, I feel everybody else is wrong and I want to change it. But at least I found something where I was right. You've gone on this crusade against burst, and you're a year in and you didn't understand burst yet? Like, if you hadn't shown that one frame, if I hadn't watched that one video, I still wouldn't have known what the fuck you were talking about with it's not a constant rate and it's not the same for everyone. Yeah, if you break it, yeah, it's not the same, because here, let me fix this for you. We're gonna take this, Control X, Control V, starting not on 0, starting on 1. This one goes on 1. Actually, it goes the other way. Never mind. So we're gonna Control Z, Control D. These numbers shift down, of course. That's what's happening. So this starts on 0. Because yeah, on 0, we're doing 0, burst TPS, and then on 0, 1, we're doing 0.1, and this is 1. So we're going from 0 to 1, and they line up. This is what we want out of burst TPS. This is what the rest of the community wants out of burst TPS. And this is burst TPS. This, not just in the vision again. Just Google burst TPS. You'll get Genshin videos. You'll get WoW videos. You'll get Eve videos. You'll get Destiny videos. You'll get Remnant videos. You'll get... Burst is like, this has existed for forever, and it has limitations, sure. But when you break it and you just shift this up for no reason and shift this basically down and just create a gap there and break it into not being a continuous number, because it needs to be a continuous number, because this isn't even like how we do burst. We just go, it's this singular number. It's that. It isn't even a line. You can put it on a line because it's per second. So per second, it goes up by that much. But that's what the rest of the community is doing. So at the very least, if you want to continue even talking about burst TPS or what your version of it is, give it a different name. It isn't a DPS because it isn't a constant. It isn't a per second. Because for a per second, it needs to be a constant. It needs to be a singular number per second. You're trying to do a simulation kind of thing, and you, by accident, basically, in trying to get a... Because yeah, from a simulation, you can't really get a DPS number, as you found out, basically. But you can get a time to kill number. Then continue on that path. And no, burst DPS isn't dumb because you've broken it, because the rest of us didn't break it. And we've told you, this is the annoying part. For months and months, I've seen comments underneath your videos that have gone into what burst DPS is every time you're talking about burst DPS, and you go like, oh, no, but I found it and it's not a constant rate. And then finally, like, it leaks out what you mean by burst DPS. It's not burst and it's not DPS. You've created something completely stupid and then argued against that. And then you're weirded out that we call you cherry picking, because that's straw manning. You basically created a straw man that you're arguing against. Because burst DPS, still, again, is this not a useful metric? Because I'm not going to go like, time to kill is, oh, no. Fog of War is trying to put this as fact and truth. And no, he is dumb. No, time to kill is a cool metric. Like, dude, do work on it. But then do it right. And don't try to use it in the way that you try to use measure, as we'll go into in a second. Because when you don't break burst DPS, it is actually a useful metric, and it's simple to get. And it's leaving out all of those things like percentage DTOC, percentage DTA, percentage accuracy. But that's not its flaw. That's its feature. We want to have a number that has actual universality, the thing you're going for the whole time, trying to create universal numbers. That like, oh, DTOC is this active and stuff. Like, this is an actual universal number. Two players with the exact same build, exact same stats, will have the exact same burst DPS. That's why we use it. And then they can go like, okay, my accuracy is this, I feel. My DTOCs are this because I play solo. My DTOC is this because I play a Hunter's Fury and I'm aggressively pushing everybody out of cover. My DTOC is this because I'm running a Hunter's Fury a Regulus build and I'm catching everything as they spawn out of a door and it's 100%. Like, you can't have universality there. Burst is the final point of universality. I would think you would like that one, actually. And at the very least, again, do burst the same way that everybody else is doing at the very least. Stop driving your car into rivers. Buy a boat. Go sit in that lake. The rest of us are in the highway just driving around. Now let's head into that measured. Because there, like, you go on about like, oh, everybody's calling me out of cherry picking. Yeah. Let's go see. Because also, you keep taking offense to people calling you a cherry picker. Well done. You've cherry picked here by doing a simulation on measured. Oh, none of the burst people will understand that measured is doing the things that it does. This is a calculation from, I timestamped my shit, 23/02/27, February of this year to 27. I altered Ranger here, so this actually is no longer Ranger, to get measured out, to get measured calculations for 1 to 25 and 26 to 50, because those are interesting to have, actually, right? Your bullet to kill, if we go back here, is 17. Later on, I'm not going to go for the exact thing. It's 25. You never go above 25. You say you've picked a red build. Well done. Good job. So have I. We can see also with burst calculations that the first part of measured is the good part of measured on a high-end red build. Yes, this is not that far behind flatline, which is up here. Especially because the flatline one also has to lose 5 crit chance to have that, well, give up a mod. So it's either giving up 5 crit chance or 5 crit damage at the very least. So that number gets closer and stuff. Yes. Yes. Measured on the first half is decent for a high-end red. On the back half, the burst falls away. On the front half, the sustain is worse, and on the back half, the sustain is worse or better. Does your time to kill calculation show you that as well? Does it? You went up to 25 rounds and you didn't see a problem with your testing methods? Really? Really? You're trying to... And here's the thing. We don't even know measured is bad from calculations from here because, yeah, it's barely an increase when you put both parts together. And you may notice actually both Stranger, Optimist, and Measured in this talent calculating thingy are red in burst. Because the burst end of it, you can't really use this because it's not a constant rate. It's 2 rates for Measured. It's 51 rates for Optimist. It's depending on this, on the firing time and the weapon. It's different rates for straight. I'm not going to calculate that out. But what we can calculate is the front and the back half. We can get DPSs out that are the same, that are basically for one part of it and then the other part of it. We combine them together back again to get this horrible burst number and this horrible sustain number. But yeah, on the front half, it's bursting more. On the back half, it's sustaining more. But it's also bursting less on the first half. Really? That was your testing. Well done. Yeah, measured is still shit. And we don't even need calculations for that. We've played with measures. I've played with every talent in the game. You kind of get a feeling for a build, and then you go and slap talents onto it and go like, does this one feel worse or better? And especially with one like measured, it's actually hard to tell because, yeah, that RPM is nice. And you also go into like, ooh, but the RPM is really good for stacking talents. It falls away at the second half. Because do you have 100% crit chance on your build? Because otherwise you're firing more than those 25 rounds to stack up Obliterate. You're firing a lot more than those 25 rounds to stack up Striker. What, that back half didn't exist for you? You took away the back half. And then you go, oh, people call me a cherry picker. No. At this point, people are calling you a fucking idiot. You are a dumbass. I was right in the first video. Oh, actually, it was the second video batch. Burst can calculate these things out, of course, too. Really, you didn't think Burst could do this? Why? Because you broke Burst, first of all. Yeah, a broken system that you've made, yeah, can't do it. And yeah, in time to kill, now go to 50 rounds then. Why didn't you go to 50 rounds? Named enemy was there. You went up to elite. You didn't go to named. Why didn't you go up to named? Is our accusation of cherry picking wrong at that point? Is it? It's all of these kinds of shit that like makes it unbelievable that you think that you know better. Because that's what you keep saying, basically, that I know better. And you go like, oh, but the rest of the community is wrong. Oh, I have ruffled their feathers. Oh, they're talking about facts and truths. Nobody's talking about facts and truths. Nobody gives a shit about facts and truths. We're just doing our shit with burst DPS because it's Easy calculation, burst, sustained damage per mag. That's really all I need to compare builds together. And then the knowledge that like this build plays differently in this way and this way. This one has more survivability, this one has more this. But yeah, let's end this discussion with the premise of your video, which I agree with. Isn't that fucking weird? And yes, let's conclude this way too long video about just 3 subjects, really. That took way too long. Let's discuss actually like the main thing that he's going through and pointing out, and that is one thing I agree with, like strangely enough, like on that one, we're on the same side of the fence. And that is that at its core, with his like this giving up weapon damage scores and stuff like that, is that survivability has value, basically. That's the core of it. Like survivability does have a value. And this everybody pushing everybody towards red builds is a bad thing. And I agree with him. And I can't agree with him. I can disagree on other stuff with him and then agree with this one either. Like that's how that works. You don't have to disagree with everything someone says just because they are because they are what they are. Because yeah, high-end reds like this, like not even like this isn't the normal one really, but I'm on this character and this is the one that they had. Get pushed on so many people, and it's not for everyone. And I've had so much backlash, and still people that kind of like make fun of me for something that actually I still hold. I just don't push it as much anymore. I just push it in different ways, basically, with my build collection and the builds I put on my recommended build list. I have said, and I still hold this to be true, more than even all of the crashing that the game has had, all of the issues, all of the the balance changes and the balance not being up to snuff, and bad weapons coming in, and even the hiatus and stuff. Even more than that, I will posit that more people have been pushed away from the game by reaching endgame and being pushed to just all red everything always. I have been in clans that have had that mentality. Like, oh, you're running a skill build? Like, yeah, I'm running a third drone build. We're going through a first-time legendary with someone. He doesn't know where everything spawns, but the third drone build can explain it to them. Oh, you should run it with a red build. I've been in those positions. Hell, so many people, like when I ran tech tanks, they go like, why are you running blue cores? You're 12, 13K. I've had that. But that is a good conversation to have. It didn't need all this. Like burst DPS can exist and you can have that conversation. Time to kill is a fine thing. It doesn't need to be part of this conversation at all. Like, yes, like you could have the same conversation couched in deep burst DPS, in damage per mag, in anything else. You can just have this conversation. And I would love for you to have this conversation with people, because I'm on your side on this, on that part. Only that part, to be clear. But yeah, what you're doing to burst DPS, yeah, is a crime, basically. And you should stop using burst DPS. At the very least, call it something else in your end. Like that real DPS, although DPS doesn't make sense with what you're doing, but realness, call it that or something. Or if you want to talk about burst DPS, do it the way that everybody else is doing it then. I've shown you why it is now, the way that it is. Why it is one bullet behind when you do time to kill. Like you haven't found anything new. These conversations, I was looking through some forums and I found forum posts from 2008 that basically made your point. And people went and learned, yes, burst DPS is one interval behind. Like that was like 2 minutes. But you want to go and like go on a crusade. Because yeah, the conversation of do we give up damage for a good reason? Hell yeah. This is my next showcase going to be. Tech tank. Heartbreaker tech tank. My preferred tech tank. Tech tanks are at the top of my recommended list after all of the red builds, like after the main crux of some of the builds. I love these things. And I'm promoting them to people. I'm not even doing it with the conversation of like, oh, we should give up. We should be okay giving up damage, especially solo. for some survivability. I'm not having that conversation. I'm just doing it. But it's good to have that conversation. So that's a good point to have. But then just do that. Then don't waste my time with having to debunk you on stuff that you obviously don't understand. And then go, I'm ruffling people's feathers. Yes, my feathers are ruffled. Like, watch them ruffle. But they're mostly ruffled because I'm like facepalming and laughing. Because yeah, your reputation as well in the community is, I'm going to guess you're not parts of the larger parts of communities. I'm in a lot of discourse for the division. Your more damage is not more damage with that cross through it from like one of your videos has become a meme on its own. Now reality has become a meme on its own. Allegedly, which you keep spouting, has become a thing on its own. What's going to be the subject of my next video, which I've recorded before this as well, by the way, which Dying More, where you call basically a Hunter's Fury build non-meta, has become a meta and a meme on its own. You've made so many memes at this point. Like, do you really not see it yourself? Do you really not see your own mistakes? Do you really have no one in your like direct vicinity going like, hey dude, maybe listen? Because here's the thing, maybe listen. Go in this conversation, that's fine. That's a very nice conversation to have. Hell, have the time to kill as your thing. Go like, hey, I'm doing everything by time to kill. I have said why I don't prefer it, but it's not that it's wrong. Because yeah, again, you're the only one talking about that other people are wrong. Except for your burst DPS calculation there and stuff, and your measured things. Like, you have actual mistakes. The things you're telling people that other people are wrong, you now show that you didn't know at all. You're doing burst DPS wrong, and then you're going, oh, it's not doing the thing I wanted. Yeah, it's not. The rest of us do understand what it's for. And we use it for that purpose. It's not our end-all be-all. We don't go, burst, thank you, burst. May we please suck your cock, burst. No one's doing that. You're making a straw man and you're fighting that straw man. Hell, you've even gone and made an actual straw man of burst DPS and you're fighting that. And you're pulling me into it to have that discussion. Like, more than anything, I would love for somebody else to pick up this fight against you. These kinds of things. Just letting me go do whatever the hell I want to do and not have to spend time on you. For everyone else, I hope it was at least a little bit informative and you at least maybe laughed a few here and there at my bad jokes. The next video is actually the video I made before this, which is on Dying More, for no particular reasons, which, of course, also hit on a few points of Mr. Fogg. Actually kind of counteract some of his points, although in it as well I show Heartbreaker Tech Tank and why I run it, but I don't push it on other people. So I hope you join me for that one, or over on Twitch where I'm streaming daily. And as always, have a good night.